What's up, homies?
We're back.
Hope y'all are doing great. And it's been great. Thank you so much, everybody, for your comments, your feedback.
Yes.
We've gotten a lot of messages, even PMs and stuff, of folks that are relating tremendously with our journey. So
Yes.
we're very thankful.
No, we appreciate you guys for reaching out. We have appreciated the self-awareness that you guys have had, that you have communicated with us. Look, it's okay, if you're on Instagram. If you're on Facebook, you can't see, but on Instagram, it's us and then us. Our picture right here behind us. But we just appreciate hearing from you guys. And it's clear that we've touched a nerve with a lot of people. And so we are going to continue to share our story with you guys and just share what this is looking like, what this has looked like, and kind of how we are walking this out and what our journey's, all about.
And while you're watching, we'd love it if you guys would interact, right? So any lessons that you're learning, any points that you're picking up, please let us know. Put them in the chat log, put them in the thread, and let us know that we're connecting with you, we're relating with you, or any lessons that you're learning as well. And also feel free, at the end, whatever, to tag friends for folks, or share it with your circles. And because our goal is to add value to anybody that watches this through our story, to the junk in our trunk. That's my style of leadership. I call it the dirty underwear style of leadership. And here's our good stuff and bad stuff, and you take it or leave it. And hopefully, God willing, it'll add value to you, and you can learn some of the lessons that we're learning at this stage.
Yes, we're going to pick up on from where we started yesterday.
Well,
we're
actually,
going to do something first.
Actually,
what are we gonna
do? Two things. One is, so we're broadcasting this on both Facebook and also our Instagram channel at Noble and Kathy, and that's NOBLE and Andy KATHY on Instagram, and then at The Noble Gibbons on Facebook. So just for you guys, FYI.
Oh, it's on your page? I thought it was on your Noble Gibbons.
Yeah, Noble Gibbons, yeah. And babe, you want to just do a quick summary of what we covered, kind of the first episode?
So very quick, just to
catch
you guys up. So first episode, we talked about how the effects of our emotional development or lack thereof in our childhood, how it affects us as an adult. And it affects us in a couple different ways. It can keep us from really knowing what our feelings and emotions are and completely being out of touch with them. It can affect us by us really not knowing ourselves and not having a basic self-awareness. It can affect us in kind of putting walls up with other people, and so not being able to get close and not being able to have close, intimate relationships with people. And then a fourth way it can affect is by feeling like you have a fatal flaw, by feeling like, man, there is just something inherently wrong with me, and if people only knew this, they would not want to be with me, or they would reject me. And it can lead to all kinds of issues in relationships. It can lead to issues just in your own personal self. And yesterday, Noble shared kind of his journey and what it looked like for him as he learned how to be an emotional stuffer and the results of that. So go check out episode 2 if you want to see that.
Yeah, and a couple things too that I just want to share with you guys that are maybe joining us for the first time. Everybody has emotions and feelings. Period, right? Whether you are aware of them or not, everybody has emotions and feelings, number one. Number two is your emotional maturity, high or low, impacts every single relationship in your life.
Yes.
With your spouse, with your children, with your coworkers,
with
yourself, with your employees, with your bosses. So there is not a relationship that your emotions and feelings don't impact. Next kind of question or point I want to bring up is this. That, just in my awareness of the people that we know, and I want to ask you all this: how many of you ever in your childhood had your emotions and feelings validated?
Yes. So give us a hashtag. So if you feel like growing up in the home that you grew up in, your emotions and feelings were validated and kind of known to you and known to your family, give us a hashtag I was known. Okay? And if they were not, give us a hashtag, nope. How about that? Just a hashtag nope. And give us a feel, because we have a theory that the majority of households are not doing this. They're not naming the emotions that their children are feeling. They're not teaching children about their emotions, validating them, and helping them learn what they are and how to handle them and how to manage them. So,
which is mind-boggling, because and I'm not saying, my awesome wife is excellent at doing that. So this is all, again, a whole new journey for me. But I'm now that I'm aware of this world, it's mind-boggling to me the number of parents that don't acknowledge and help identify and name and validate their children's emotions and feelings. And it's not a knock; it's just an interesting observation of society in our culture, and also in my house growing up. I mean, it's not like we had, and again, I'm thankful for my parents. This is not a knock on my parents. They loved us tremendously and love us tremendously. Just that just wasn't something that we did in our household, was discuss our emotions and feelings openly and freely. And I guess my next point would be that there are consequences. There are absolute consequences in all of our lives and all of our relationships due to the emotional baggage that we carried from our childhood. One of the other quotes that I've said throughout each of the videos so far is that no one leaves their childhood unscathed emotionally. No one leaves their childhood unscathed emotionally. And also, pain that's not transformed will be transferred. Pain that's not transformed will be transferred. So
it's usually transferred in a negative way.
Yes.
It doesn't get transferred into positivity without some healing taking place.
And this is one other thing, and then the rest of the show is going to be pretty much Mama Sita here, kind of sharing her story. But the other thing I want to say is this, is that your emotional maturity does not get better with age without intention, right? So let me tell you my emotional...
You can grow up like in age.
Get older?
You can get older, but you can get older, but it doesn't mean you're growing up. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And what I found is it's the opposite. So my emotional journey was getting worse the more I avoided it, right? Because for me, I could write probably a whole Encyclopedia Britannica series on how to avoid your emotions and feelings, right? I've got a PhD
He's good at that.
in my emotions and at avoiding my emotions and feelings. And that's an area, again, that I am, now obviously very intensely working on and overcoming, because what was happening, it was a slippery slope. The more I would avoid, into this phase of my life, my emotions and feelings, they slowly started to unravel. Like, you can't stop it. It just, they are going to show up at some point in some place in your life. And like Mama Sita said, a lot of times it's not going to be a positive experience for yourself and or for those in your life that matter to you. So, babe, can you just share maybe some of your...
book. So one of the books that we are reading, both of us right now, because we're working on this together, is this one here, and I'm sure it's going to be backwards, but it's called Running on Empty by Dr. Janice Webb. And it's been awesome. And she actually gives in the book 12 different types of households or growing up experiences that people have, and that what the results of those could be, right? And so there's a lot of them. Some are applicable to us and some are not. So the main one that I'm going to talk about today that was applicable to me was where they talk about having where a parent leaves, right? So either through death or through divorce or through abandonment of some sort, and then the results of that on the family. And so that was my experience. So when I was about 8 years old or so, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And when that happens in a family, there's obviously, as you can imagine, a lot that happens, because there's not just the physical aspect of dealing with somebody who has an illness like that, who has cancer. That's pretty serious. But there's also the emotional aspect of it. And now, as an adult, looking back on what that experience was like for my parents, because they were young, and I think my dad's on here. Hi, Dad. If you're watching, they were young. They were in their 30s, in their early 30s when she was diagnosed. So I'm trying, as we have gone through our parenting journey, hitting the ages that they were at when they were facing this, they had 4 young kids. Like, I can only imagine what that experience was like for all of them. Now, for me, I was obviously a child during this time. I was 8 years old. And so there's a lot that...
Keep shaking the cameras.
Oh, sorry, I keep shaking the cameras with my hands. So there's a lot that goes, there's a lot of emotions. There's a lot that goes into that. And my parents, I had incredible parents. My dad has gone on, he's actually written a book about his experiences as a widower, as a 2-time widower. It's called I Didn't Know What to Say. It's excellent. And they tried to do as much as they could do for us as children, as they were dealing with their own issues of obviously going through this battle with cancer. And then my mom passed away. She died when I was in 11th grade. Okay, so much of my childhood was spent dealing with either a sick parent or dealing with grief. And regardless of how amazing your family is when you go through that, and I think I'm probably in the minority that has an amazing family to go through trauma like that. Most people go through trauma and it's just negative, right? They go through abandonment, or they go through a divorce, or they go through some kind of
abuse,
childhood, or maybe abuse situations. They go through some kind of trauma or crisis as a child without any kind of support. And so what happens is that leaves a mark, right? That leaves a mark. That leaves
emotional
holes.
Scar.
Yeah, emotional scarring, holes in the emotional makeup, because there's only so much you can process as a child, right? There's only so much that you can process as your own. And so you start to do a couple of things. You either start to shut parts of yourself down just out of self-preservation, or you might take on things that are not yours to take on. You might take on responsibilities that are not yours, even just emotional, like, well, I just have to soldier on, I can't feel this, or you might think it's not safe to feel this. So there's a lot of different things that are very natural, right? That are kind of survival mechanisms that maybe serve us as children because we just don't know better, and we're just doing the best we can, and we're just trying to survive. However, when you get to be an adult, like Noble said, pain that's not transformed will be transferred, and that plays out. And that plays out in your relationships, that plays out in your ability to connect, in your ability to have intimacy in your own relationships. The walls that you put up are going to either keep you in or keep others out. And so really it was time for me to look at, okay, what are those things that I did, coping mechanisms that I used as a child that are no longer serving me anymore? And how is that holding me back? How is that keeping me in? And how is that keeping others out? And that's been a big part of my journey, of really figuring this out for me.
And there are, like we've talked about in the other 2 videos. If you haven't seen the other 2, I encourage you to check out some of the other, the other 2 videos, just because it's going to give you guys some more context. Because, as intentional as a parent could possibly be, there's no perfect parents. So when a child, i.e. Kathy, for example, in that scenario, or any of us that go through trauma as a child, those feelings, if the child is not able to safely express their feelings and emotions,
and have them validated
in a safe environment, and then have those emotions and feelings validated and addressed, it's gonna be consequences. There are gonna be consequences. And something that I've seen Kathy do, not only for our kid who's 11, but Kathy's been doing this now for a handful of years, but also for me, just based on where I'm at in my journey, because she's further down the emotional interstate than I am at this point, is she has helped me and helped our kid. That's funny because I'm going through the same journey that my kid is, which is crazy. But
you're doing good, Gordon.
Thank God that it's, I guess, better late than never. is what she's been doing has been very, very helpful, is she's helping name what both of us are feeling. In obviously, depending on whatever the situation is, if she can tell, she just did it. Okay, dude, like I can tell you're feeling some kind of way. I'm like, no, I feel fine. She's like, okay, like I'm telling you, you're feeling some kind of way.
I think you're feeling.
So she'll name it. I think you're feeling whatever the emotion is, angst, anxiousness, you're upset, you're, whatever that emotion is. And I'll tell you what's been very helpful. It's been very helpful for her to name that emotion for me. And here's the other thing too. Excuse me. One of the things I read today, they talk about IAAA, so IAAA. Identify the emotion, accept the emotion, because, so number one is identify and name it. Number two is accept it, because emotions aren't wrong or right. They're emotions, right? They just are. And then the third, so identify, accept, attribute the cause. See if you can identify what the cause is.
Why am I feeling this way?
Boom. So ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? And then the last one is, what action can I take, assuming it's appropriate, based on what I'm feeling? So that way you can express it. You can, let it. It's almost like, for example, I'll give you an example. It's like journaling, right? So when you can journal kind of what you're feeling, that kind of thing, it's an action, it's an expression, of what's maybe inside of you. Otherwise, if you don't identify, because the power of identifying your emotions and feelings is, then your brain, because again, I've said this in a couple of other videos, if your brain cannot identify, if your brain doesn't name, if it doesn't know what something is, then it just starts rattling around and causes stress and anxiety and feeling overwhelmed and stuff. But as soon as you can name, hey, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, now your brain can label it, file it, organize it.
And go to work on it.
Boom. And start going to work on it.
And getting awareness.
Let me ask you, babe, so based on that journey that you went through with your mom for all those years, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm asking you real life here. Do you feel like and I'm just talking about you, not your siblings, your emotions and feelings going through that, were you able to identify what they were, and were they validated in that journey?
I think to a certain extent, yes, and to a certain extent, no. Because again, being so young, I don't think I was initiating that. I wasn't asking about that. I didn't have a lot of awareness. I think I was developing awareness, but I didn't necessarily have a lot of it. And so that didn't come until later. That part didn't come until, until a lot later. I think there was definitely some, some validation of some of it. But again, nobody can validate what I'm not expressing, right? Nobody can validate what I'm not saying. And so being able to express it is really key. Like you said, you have to first identify. And I think there was just a lot that I felt, but I wasn't able to identify and wasn't able to articulate. And so that just kind of, shows up. So the way that it showed up for Noble and I has been very different, right? So for him, his, emotional growth or lack thereof showed up in adulthood as not knowing his feelings, not being in touch with his feelings and emotions, completely out of touch with them, and not being able to, not being able to name them, and then really just kind of some unworthiness that comes along with that. For me, it looked very different. For me, it looked like not knowing myself and not being able to really know, okay, this is who I am, and this is what I want, and this is what I think, and this is why. And then, so just kind of shutting down, because feeling like, well, I don't think anybody even cares anyways, right? So isn't it interesting how we make these beliefs? Now we make beliefs that we're acting out of in our life based on, based on these emotions that we may not have ever been able to name or validate.
One of the thing about feelings and emotions is that feelings are not, they're not truths, right? So it's not a truth. It's not a fact. It's not a fact. Feelings are not facts. They're real. Feelings are real. They're valid. They are what they are, but it's not a fact. So, what happens a lot of times in another great book called Crucial Conversations, it talks about when we see and observe something, then we tell ourselves a story based on what we saw and observed. And then based on that story that we're telling ourselves, that causes us to feel a certain way. And then once we're feeling a certain way, that causes a behavior, right? So another thing that's been very helpful along this journey is reverse engineer it. So what's the behavior that's going on? Okay, well, what's the feeling and emotion behind that behavior? Well, what's the story that I've been telling myself to cause those emotions and feelings? And then let me go back to what I observed and really see, okay, is my story accurate? Because again, feelings are what they are. It's not right or wrong feelings. They are what they are, but our stories can be inaccurate based on what we saw and observed. And a great example is if you put 10 people in a room and say, okay, what do you see? Yeah, what do you see on that wall over there? Some people will say it's a wall. Some people say it's a painting. Some people, right, you have 10 different perspectives. And so it's really important to really kind of break down that the value path, that feeling path, if you will. And it's been super helpful for us.
So anyways, I think that's probably enough for today. This is going to get too long anyways, but just sharing with you guys our journey. And the big thing that's given us a lot of hope is just that you can heal from this. We can heal from this. We're in the midst of it. Has it always been fun and easy? Nope, not, but it's been good. And we want you to know that if you're hearing yourself in any of this, as we share our story with you guys, just know that there's hope and there's things that you can do. There's resources, some that we've been mentioning, and we'll do some more videos maybe, because there's a lot more that we've been learning and we're happy to share with you guys. So.
Yeah, so we're on all the social media platforms, again, Instagram, YouTube, my YouTube channel, either Noble Gibbons or the 360 movement. Either way, we've got a lot. I'm putting all these videos on those sites as well, and again our Instagram site, Noble and Kathy, and then also on Facebook here as well. And again, if you feel like these have been helpful, feel free to tag friends, share this with others. If you feel like this has helped you at all, let us know, and we'll keep sharing our journey with you guys, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you all. God bless you all.
Night.